Elliot, hello, Lana. Oh, is that all right? Okay. Well, and it looked like I talked to Kevin Reeves up in Akron, and he'd had Clarice had sent him a questionnaire, but it was different format than the one than Tim had sent. So I just filled it, and I didn't think you'd have a problem with it. I just kind of fluffed it up a bit. So yeah. Well, I think so because I figured out with um, and I put add him back 10 and I put no visitors because in phase one they prohibit any visitors. Okay, and then the other thing that I've been told by the office up north is that they don't, if they authorize us into phase one, that if we have, let's say we have 15 employees, then they won't let us bring all 15, but they'd bring 14 or 10 or whatever, and nobody's going to count them anyway. So, yeah. So, oh, that's too bad. Oh, cool, cool. Yep, that's right. Cool. Not, not a problem. Yep, yep, yep. Well, I've got another meeting. I got to jump on at 8. So
Can you still hear me?
thanks for the help. All right. Bye bye. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Chuck.
Morning.
I got myself switched over. So, all right. So I think we'll cover this again once everybody is on. But how Daryl's gonna try to join by phone, but he had something that conflicted with this morning. So I'm gonna moderate, I guess, this morning. And so the way that'll just work is we've got 3 of you who are going to speak on the panel, and you'll just have 10 minutes to chat, and then we'll take some questions and about 5 minutes of questions reserved for each of the panelists, and then at the very end we'll be able to kind of just sew that up, and we'll be done and out in an hour. And that's kind of at least how I've got it set. And I think you are the second of the 3 moderators, or panelists. Does that match what you were expecting this morning?
Works. Whatever's good for you.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I'm going to mute for a second, and then I'll be back as everybody. Oh, it looks like Mitzi's joined.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, Mitzi, it's Chuck Hannigan's on. This is John Whitler, and Chelsea's on, but she's on mute over there. She's going to help me with all the technical pieces today. So some of us are quicker at that than others, and I would be in the others category sometimes. Mr. Darrell, that looks like you have joined.
Yes, and the one tap works. It's a marvelous thing, John. I just got it on my phone, tapped it, and it did all the work. I'm so glad. Did all the work.
That's what we like. So, all right. So Chuck is on. He's away from the computer at the moment, but Chuck is on, and Mitzi's on, and we got Chelsea hanging out helping with the tech. So
great. All right. I don't know how I'm going to mute when I'm on here. So, or I don't even know how to get off speakerphone. Except tap my speakerphone, but it won't go off, John.
All right. Well, I can mute you, but then I won't know that you're trying to talk. So if you want to be muted, just let me know.
Yeah,
and you can listen in.
Mute me and bring me on at the start, and I'll say about Bill, and
okay.
I'll say that you're our trustee moderator today.
All righty, that sounds good.
So I'll just be cool until you bring me on.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
Hey, Letty.
Can you hear me, hopefully?
We can, yes, and we can see you.
Awesome.
Well done. We're just going to hang out for a few more minutes until everybody else joins.
Okay, sounds good.
Good morning, Dee. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning, Fernando. It's always nice to, yeah, it's always nice to talk to somebody right when they've got a bite in their mouth, isn't it? What kind of a jerk does that, right?
Some delicious oatmeal. Let me shut my door. My dog's talking to me right now, so let me close my door.
You bet. All right. I see it's straight up 8, but we're gonna wait for another minute or two here, just see if we got a couple of the others hop on. I know that it's beginning to be wheat harvest time and a busy time if you're growing things. So that's the purpose of recording these, is we know that some people like to access them after the fact. So we're at least happy that we're all here and all of our presenters are here, because we can't let them watch the video afterwards. All right, I think we'll be able to welcome anybody else as they join if need be. I like to just try to get going as close to on time as possible. So I thank you guys for joining us this morning. I know that I think everybody is a familiar face to me, except for Letty, who's joining us today. But just to be sure that I've introduced myself, I'm John Whitler, and I am the Director of Development and the Regional Coordinator for Ogallala Commons in Southeast Colorado. And I'm gonna help out today. Daryl's on the phone here, but he had something else that was a conflict for being in front of the computer this morning. So I'm gonna help out this morning. And actually, before we get going, I wanted to take a minute. Some of you probably personally knew Bill Stevens, and for those of you who did not or have not heard, we wanted to just acknowledge that Bill passed away recently, and he over the weekend he suffered a heart attack and has moved from this world to the next. But Bill was the director of the Rocky Mountain Farmer Union's Co-op Development Center, and he has been a strong partner of ours. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, he joined us on this call and was with us. So Bill really helped to make sure that over the years there was five interns a year. He helped make 5 internships a year for the last 10 years. Really was a strong supporter from a funding perspective, but also just a great advocate, encourager, a partner to us. And so we wanted to take a moment and acknowledge Bill's life and legacy, and to just celebrate that, make sure that you guys were all aware of that. And I wanted to ask Daryl, I got him muted here. If Daryl, do you have anything that you want to add regarding that?
Just to say, John, thanks for moderating the call today. And yes, Bill Stevenson was a wonderful, animator and convener, and so we met with him several times in Denver, and just I think it's been 10 years at least of that rural development funding. Part of that grant was helping to create internships in Colorado and New Mexico. A lot of these interns were doing food shed work, so he will be missed. And so some of you might have seen him on those early calls, so we just wanted to, again, as John said, lift him up, and thankful for his life and his work. So I'm on my way to one of those dentist appointments you have to schedule 6 months in advance, and it falls on today. So great of John to step forward, and since he's a project director anyway. And good to have Letty on today. She's just across the state line, but probably sells some beef in Southeast Colorado. So it's good to have her on, as well as Jessica Wright today, and Chuck Hannigan. So John, if you'll take it away.
All right, well, thank you. And yeah, again, it'll be a bummer not to see Bill's smile anymore on these, but we're very grateful for his work. So this morning, the topic of our call is accessing and selling into more of the industrial markets, or not the industrial markets. My words all left me right when I was beginning to speak, so I should just be quiet with that and turn it over to those who prepared to speak. But anyway, talking about selling to the grocery stores and hospitals, schools, that sort of thing, and how do we access those markets a little bit as producers. So with that, we've invited 3 different panelists this morning, and just to kind of let you know what the structure of the call is going to be. Each of those panelists will introduce themselves and talk for about 10 minutes about what they're doing and the things that they're involved in, talk a little bit about that topic. Then we'll have about 5 minutes following that that we've got reserved for questions and answers with that panelist. And then we'll move into the next panelist for the same structure. And we're going to start with Jessica Wright and move to Chuck Hannigan. And then we've got Letty McKinney that's going to follow that up. And then we'll have a little bit of time at the end just to kind of wrap it all up and look forward to the next time that we get together. So with that, I think we're going to pull up the PowerPoint, and I'm just going to turn it over to Jessica. And if you would go ahead and just introduce yourself and take it away.
Awesome. Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm hearing.
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. I tried to call in on my phone, as I know video can be weird sometimes. So hello, hi, I am Jessica Wright, Chef Jess from Livewell, Colorado, and I am the Procurement and Culinary Programs Manager here. And I do have a program that I manage, but I wanted to at least spend a couple of minutes talking about Livewell, Colorado as a whole and what we do as a nonprofit to be able to support just farmers, producers, families, consumers, and institutions all across the food chain in order to increase access to healthy eating while also working to support our local producers and overall just the local economy within our state. And just because I know we have some people on the outside borders of our state, we are definitely open to making sure that, especially those school districts that are down in far southeastern Colorado, we're not limiting them only to southeastern Colorado producers. If it makes sense for them to reach out to Kansas or Texas because they're just right across the border, then go for it. So wanted to at least put that little disclaimer into the mix. So this is us, Live Well Colorado, and we can go on to the next slide. And so what we do as an organization is we're very focused on the food system side, and we have 4 main focus areas, and they all really work together. I will say as a whole, as an organization, this is something we are constantly improving and constantly trying to make sure that we are focusing on and getting better at. So there have been some learning curves over the years, as Live Well has been around since 2010, and we started out as a healthy eating, active living nonprofit. And over the course of, this last decade, we have transitioned to be more focused strictly on the food system space. So within the organization, we have our healthy food and institutions bucket. This is the one that myself and Chef Fez tend to live in. We have our Local Procurement Colorado program, which is the one that I'll speak about a bit more later. And then we also have our School Food Initiative, which was where we went around the state and visited over 100 school districts out of the 180 and worked with them to help increase their scratch meal and fresh fruit and vegetable offerings that they have. So we've done that for the last decade, and then we worked on creating LoProCo, Local Procurement Colorado. We also have our Healthy Food Incentive bucket, where we have our Double Up Food Bucks program and our Colorado Nutrition Incentive program. I'll dive into that one a little bit later, but those are more focused on the incentive part. So how can we incentivize our consumers to start purchasing local Colorado grown produce and products as much as is feasible? And then we have our coalitions, which are all designed to support the work that we're doing in our institutions and our incentive work. So our Colorado Food Policy Network, Community Food Advocates, the Food Systems Advisory Council, which has recently merged with our Colorado Farm to School Task Force, and then our Voices for Colorado, which is focused on helping people who usually don't have access to getting into policy or they don't have the skills. Let's focus on helping them learn how to become advocates and what it takes to actually pass a bill and make it law. So that's been a really cool program. And all of this work is supported through the work that we do on the federal level and the state level. We have heard consistently across the board, and especially on the institutional side, that in order for change to happen, it's better if it's actually a law. So we definitely look at ways that we can use our legislator at the state level and also on the federal level to support a lot of these initiatives and efforts that we are trying to make. And we'll go next slide. So on the policy side, we are very active. This has been a fun area for me to get into and start learning a little bit more. Just a bit of background for myself, like I've come from the restaurant world, been working in restaurants with Chef Fez for, probably a couple of decades past 2010. Before 2010, we were working in restaurants and opening restaurants, training programs, doing a lot of just that restaurant life. So to come into this space and work in the nonprofit world and then to start learning about the policy and everything has been a lot of fun, and been able to actually have a couple successes, and then also, as is typical when you start getting into the policy world, some challenges and disappointments as well. So on the state level, one of the big things that we did was we actually got that Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council, COFSAC. We made it to where it has a full-time person who is paid, a full-time paid position to actually run and manage that governor-appointed council. And one of the main things they are focused on is supporting farm to institution. So that was a big deal, as it used to be only voluntary based. And while we all, put in our time and efforts for volunteering, it's, change actually happens a bit faster when you have somebody paid to do the work and focus on that. So that was a big win for us. We also have our Colorado Nutrition Incentive Program, Cnip. So this is focused, it's strictly money that goes towards buying produce that can then go into CSA boxes for people who participate in the WIC program and the seniors, the area agencies on aging. And then we have our local school food purchasing program. This one was designed to provide an additional 5 cents a meal for school districts to purchase Colorado grown, processed, or raised products. This bill had bipartisan support, and it was supposed to be off and rolling this year, and then the pandemic hit, and they were like, whoa, that's too much money, and they did decide to press pause on that one. So unfortunately, we were just ramping up, about to have the district selected, and about to roll forward on this when we did have to press pause. The bill is not killed, it's still alive, we just have to wait until there's funding available. So we're thinking about going back in, I think, 2 fiscal years to ask for the money so that we could do this again. And then on the federal side, we have our Farm Bill, which is, I'm sure a lot of you all are very familiar with. We do a lot of work within the Farm Bill. We really focus on it used to be called the FINI, but it's now the Gus Schumacher Nutrition Program, and that's what basically funds our Double Up Food Bucks program. I'll talk about that in a little bit. We're focused on the local agricultural marketing program and then keeping the integrity of SNAP. And then with the Child Nutrition Reauthorization Act that, was supposed to come around, that's probably another year out at this point. We're very focused on ensuring there's funding for the Farm to School Act, the Kids Eat Local Act, and then also with our Farmers Market Nutrition Program and maintaining the standards that were set in the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. Also on the federal side, we are members of the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition, and we're members of the National Farm to School Network. So we have our fingers in a lot of different avenues when it comes to the food space. And then, of course, all of this work cannot be done without the people on the ground. So we do have our coalitions to help support that work. Community food advocates really focus on supporting the Double Up Food Bucks program, Colorado Food Policy Network, the Voices program, which I touched on. And then as of right now, we have a Colorado Farm and Food Systems Response Team that we've launched, which is really focused on supporting our farmers and producers during this time of the pandemic and ensuring that they have access to the resources and support and even funding that they might need to ensure that they are viable throughout the growing season with a lot of the markets that they have, like the restaurant markets and even farmers markets, potentially having to experience shifts right now due to the pandemic. We'll go next slide. So on the market channels for just the producers, this is kind of the incentive side of the bucket that we work in. We have our Double Up Food Bucks program, which is incredible. And it's nice seeing Hannigan Farms on there because we do have them as a location out on the Eastern Plains, and we have Jets Farm as well out on the Eastern Plains. But this is a great way for families who are basically on SNAP to be able to receive an additional $1 up to $20 that can go directly towards Colorado grown produce. So an excellent way for families who are already in need to effectively have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, basically as a bonus. So we're always looking for ways to add on new markets and bring new farms into the mix and really continue supporting those families that are on SNAP. And then the other program is the Colorado Nutrition Incentive Program, or Cnip. And that's the one that is specifically for WIC and older adult congregate meal programs, basically area agencies on aging. And I'm learning a lot about that side as well. But what they're doing is a senior center that works with lower income seniors can basically sign up for this program, and they can get $10,000 that goes directly towards CSA shares. And that money then, goes to the farmer, we get the CSA shares, and it goes to those families in need. So another great program that we're looking to keep. And as of right now, with the way the budget's looking, this one has not been cut. So it's actually pretty fantastic. We think it was a small enough number to just barely fly under the radar. So we're actually able to roll forward with having that funding for this year as well. We'll go to our next slide. And so now we get to my world, mine and Fez's world. And this is basically our LOPROCO, Local Procurement Colorado program. I do like to say that both Chef Fez and I, we are a little bit crazy, but we're not too crazy to actually name our program LOCO Pro, which would be like Spanish for crazy, loco. So that's a great way to remember it. It's LOPROCO, Local Procurement Colorado. And this program really was designed after all the work that Fez and I and our team of chefs did over the last decade through our school food initiative, where we would hear a lot of schools, they would have kind of these smaller farm to school programs going on, whether it was a garden or they would purchase some local products from a farm down the street, kind of one off, one hand, or they would like to do local, they just didn't know how to even get into the mix. And we were noticing that outside of a few school districts in our state, there was really only, I'd say probably 5 out of our 180 school districts that were really doing farm to school and doing farm to school well. And farm to school has 3 main components. We have the procurement of local items, a school garden, and then the educational component as well. So what we really wanted to do was, again, hone in our energy and attention away from being a bit of, I guess the word could be agnostic around whether or not you're buying local products or not. We just initially, School Food Initiative, just get fresh product into your kitchens and start using fresh fruits and vegetables instead of a lot of processed items. Start making from scratch meals. And we spent that last decade getting a good amount of our school districts to that state to where they actually felt comfortable handling a 50-pound bag of whole carrots compared to 50 pounds of baby carrots. And that was a step that needed to happen to where now, if a school district wants to buy 50 pounds of carrots from the local farmer, they know how to actually handle those 50 pounds of carrots. So we wanted to build a program that would focus on that and also be able to reach out to our other institutions as well. And so really, this whole program is designed around regional workshops where we are inviting our farmers, producers, ranchers, health inspectors, CSU extension specialists, our state agencies, so the Department of Education has been attending every single training that we do whenever we're focused on school districts. And then we're also inviting other food access partners into the mix, and then the cooks from those kitchens and the food service director, the one who makes those purchasing decisions. So everybody's coming to these trainings, and it's really designed to, one, get everybody to have just a good general understanding as to what it takes to make farm to school, farm to institution the norm. We recognize that a lot of school districts, most of them in the state, and most institutions, when it comes to making their purchasing decisions, it is a process. There are rules, there are regulations that a school district has to follow, that an institution has to follow when it comes to making their purchasing choices. And a lot of these have already been set and have been in place for a handful of years, with contracts basically with some of the large vendors being set to renew every 3 years. So it can be hard to make these changes when you're already kind of used to a routine. And we want people to understand that, you know, our school districts, they have their routines when they're purchasing. It's easy to just be like, hey, I have this contract with Cisco. I know what I need to order and I can do it every single week and I don't have to question it. And making sure that our farmers and producers and other stakeholders are in the room and they start to understand that. And then on the farmer side, we want our school districts and our institutions to, one, know what the farmers are already doing when it comes to food safety, and that this is what they're doing to make sure they grow their food safely so that our schools can have that language and the institutions can understand it. And to also really be aware of the fact that growing and buying local, there is that inherent risk because weather can come in and completely wipe out a crop. And we've noticed that in some school districts, when that happens, when they don't have the right system in place, when they don't have the right tools, they get frustrated. And sometimes that comes back and lands on the farmer. And it's like, why would I even keep trying to buy local when, you know, something's going to go wrong and a hailstorm is going to wipe out a crop that I said I would be committed to buying? So we're trying to really create this overall shared understanding of each other's worlds while also working to give our institutions the tools they need and reinforcing the tools that they already use to make sure they have their plan B in place and their plan C in place, and that they can really navigate this in a way that makes sense for them and their organization, while also really showing them the value and the benefit of supporting our local and regional farmers, producers, and ranchers. And so with this, when it comes to the institutional market, and I keep going to schools because that has been basically mine and Chef Bez's world for the last decade, but schools are an option, hospitals, colleges, senior care centers, even some of your municipalities that might have their own food service programs. It works more on the Front Range than it does out on the Eastern Plains, but some of our larger government entities actually have basically policies in place where they want to be able to be purchasing 25% local by, gosh, I think 2020, and we're here now. But there's a lot of opportunity within our institutions to do this. And nationwide, over $150 billion was spent by our institutions buying their raw prepared foods, their beverages. So this is a market that can be tapped into. It's also an incredibly stable market. If we think about our schools, I mean, minus the time of the pandemic that we're in, this is a stable market. They know they're going to have kids coming to their school every single day. Most of our schools are actually planning their menus out 6 months in advance. Their contracts, they're putting purchasing contracts into place that can be good for a year, 2 years, 3 years. This is a committed market that can really give you a lot of that opportunity to almost forecast with what you want to grow and have a buyer there in place, as long as, you know, pests and hailstorms don't take things out. So we really see a lot of opportunity with our institutions to be able to effectively support our local and regional producers. And a couple of studies have been done that have shown that for every dollar a school district spends on local, it can bring anywhere between $1.60 to $3.12 back into that local economy. And right now, with our Colorado school districts, they are only spending 4% of their total budget on local products, and most of that is going towards milk. So if there is a way that we could actually get that up to 10%, it's really quite just incredible to think about what that could actually bring back into our local economy. So this is really where we have a lot of our energy and excitement around. We'll go to our next slide. So just to give you a quick little glance, this is basically Low Proco. It started in 2019, the beginning of 2019, and we did 2 pilot workshops down in Southwest Colorado and San Luis Valley. And we chose those 2 regions because there's been a lot of movement with the local food side. There's a strong school district down in Durango that has been doing a lot of farm to school. That food service director, she has gone above and beyond her own normal job requirements, which are already just overwhelming as is, to really shore up the producers, develop those relationships, and create a program that is rather robust down in her region. And then in the San Luis Valley, we have Liza here on the call as well. They attended our very first one in the middle of February during an insane blizzard. It was amazing that we actually had that training and it happened, but we did that. And San Luis Valley has a food hub down in this region. So they're in a great place to be able to support a lot of these smaller rural school districts that do have a high need. So we have our 2 pilot workshops, and we're doing these in the winter because, again, we want our producers to come to these trainings as well. So we had our pilot ones in February and March of 2019, and then we had 4 more workshops at the end of 2019. We did one on the Western Slope, one down in the Springs and Pueblo area, which, to be completely honest with you all, we had very low attendance on the farmer producer side down in that region. And then we did one up in the northern Colorado region. And because one of the school districts who attended is actually part of a food service management company, Chartwell's, that food service director effectively was able to bring in 3 school districts from the northeastern plains because she runs those districts as well. And a little note about food service management companies like a Chartwell's, a Sodexo, they're out there and they're actually in a lot of our institutional markets. So our mindset is if we can get the Chartwell's and the Sodexos also on board with prioritizing a percentage to go towards local producers, that will then filter out to a lot of the school districts and other institutions that they purchase for. and will make the process easier for those institutions versus the individual one having to make those decisions. And then we did one in the Denver metro region that actually happened at the beginning of February 2020. And you can click because we are planning on doing 4 more regions. So basically, because San Luis Valley and Southwest Colorado, they got our pilot workshops, one thing that I pride myself on, but I also recognize is, probably annoying to a lot of my colleagues, is we're constantly listening, learning, and providing adaptions and adjustments to our modules, what we teach, our workshops, everything along those lines, because our ultimate goal is to make sure that these workshops are, 1, a good use of our participants' time, and 2, able to give them tangible benefits and tangible ideas and next steps so that they can return back to their respective areas and have a good process for moving forward. So we want to go back to our pilot regions and basically give them a 2.0 version of the original workshop model that just builds upon what we taught the first time and is giving them even more clear next steps for moving forward. And then we plan on coming to the Eastern Plains, doing the Northeast Plains and the Southeast Plains as well. There is a lot of interest out there. However, we keep hearing across the board from the school districts that they just don't know of any producers in the region and what could be available to them. But we're seeing that there are options, and we're excited to do that. The pandemic has basically made us press pause because we were planning on doing these at the end of this year, and now we're waiting until the end of 2021 to look at holding these 4 workshops. We'll go next slide. And just to show you, because pictures are fun, and that was a lot of information, basically, since we launched this program, we have reached 45 school districts. We brought in the group purchasing co-op. So we have a BOCES co-op that does a lot of purchasing for a lot of the rural school districts. And we have a Rockies purchasing service. So again, we're looking at any way for an institution to buy local, whether that's working with their current vendors, their purchasing co-ops, or just doing one-off ones with the farmers. It's what works for you and how does this make sense for you? And one of our big kind of mantras that we try to promote is you can do anything, but you can't do everything. So we are here as a resource, and we want to bring all these people into the same room so that our attendees can see, oh, this is a connection. This is who I need to go to for this. I need to understand food safety a little bit better, and I just met a farmer, and I can go and tour their farm and see what they do to ensure that their practices are safe. And maybe they don't need to be GAP certified farmers. Like, where are some of these barriers of entry, and how can we work to support our farmers and our institutions and make those connections? These trainings, as I mentioned, they are held in the winter. However, we like to model and basically show that even in the dead of winter, you can still serve a meal that highlights locally grown products. So we are actually featuring Colorado quinoa in the mix, our potatoes, of course. We're using sunflower oil, so Colorado Mills has joined a lot of our trainings. And this is, again, a way to show that if an institution is not at a place where they feel comfortable with maybe getting 50 pounds of carrots, what about sunflower oil? We bring a local ketchup producer into the mix. We have onions, carrots, cornmeal, dried beans. All of this is to say, even in December, January, February, you can still do local. So it's a bit of a stop with the excuses and let's figure it out while also holding hands and supporting people with this. A lot of the workshops are designed to be engaging and really getting people out of their seats and talking and meeting and connecting. And we got the last slide. I think that was my 10 minutes. So ask me about questions. I will admit I have been camping for the last couple of days and got in yesterday, so I feel like I'm a little off my game, a little tired. I'm still in the woods, so, but happy to share.
Thank you, Jessica. I want to check real quick if anybody's got a burning question for Jessica. That was a lot of great information there.
I do.
All right, go for it.
Hey, Jessica, what about meats? Are you seeing any meats going into the school districts? Beef or chicken or eggs or, I don't know, eggs aren't a meat, but.
Yeah, it's been more. We've seen a few districts that have done beef. That's probably been the bigger one compared to pork, chicken. I know, gosh, and Fez, maybe you can, I feel like Constant School District up in Loveland, they were looking at pork potentially. Shell eggs are tough for school districts. Some of the, actually on the Eastern Plains, there's probably a higher usage of shell eggs compared to a lot of the Front Range school districts and larger districts are using the liquid eggs. But we are working on we're basically working on increasing the beef presence at our trainings. We had, what's her name, Julie Moore from the Colorado Beef Council attended our Denver training, and we're keeping her in the mix, especially as we move out to the Eastern Plains, as we recognize that might be one of the easiest avenues to getting more beef into the mix.
And if I may just say, this is just something to share with the group because you guys have a lot of connections with producers. And one of the things that I do, we do a lot of outreach, and I'm traveling all over Colorado, and we are huge. And I'm traveling to these schools, and on my way to the schools, what do I see out the windows? Cows. So it's really frustrating that there's cows all over the place, but we can't serve the beef, the eggs, so maybe, and this is why partnerships really work, because hopefully with this group, we can change that and start increasing the meat in the schools, the local beef, because come on, there's a lot of good beef and good ranchers that I'm sure would love to provide them to the schools. And we don't want the steaks, no prime rib, no ribeyes, the cheap stuff, but good.
Just ground beef. Give us ground beef, we'll use it.
Awesome.
Jessica,
Well,
this is Dee. I have a quick question. With your institutions, I'm curious, is the pushback to not use local because of price? Is the competition the pricing, or is it that so many of these institutions want a product that is already processed, clean, chopped in a bag, and it's ready to eat out of the bag? Which is it, or is it both?
It's a mix of both. So cost has been a big barrier right now, especially with the school district market. And honestly, moving forward, our schools have been drastically hit, especially our school food programs, because of the pandemic. So in a lot of our conversations, when it comes to, are you interested in supporting local? Are you doing anything? They're like, please, that is far on the back burner. So cost has always been a barrier, and most likely even more so now as our school districts look to build up their funds once things go back to normal. And then you're right, you hit it right on the head as well with the processing piece. A lot of our school districts definitely need more of the training and the skills to be able to take a product in its whole form and serve that in their meal program versus having something that's already been processed, prepared, and chopped. I will say to that, we have been having a lot of conversations at our organization around needing more of these regional types of food hubs that can handle the processing, whether it's freezing, canning, even, just fresh items going directly to our institution in a processed state to try to minimize some of that barrier that is there, because it's a big one. And we're trying to work on it with the culinary skills, because we do that. We get in there and we teach them how to do this in a way and how to plan their menus so that you can handle fresh local products coming into your kitchen with the time that they have. But it's a big one. So that's a dream. If there's any, angel investors out there that want to help us get some of these processing hubs started, because that would be huge right there. I know people would buy.
I'll follow up
Right.
with you later on, but I might have an idea on that funding. And one other quick question. I'm sorry, guys, but Fez. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. I was gonna say, could we just stick the other questions into the chat at this point? I want to make sure that we get to the other. So cut down your questions, but go ahead and just stick them in the chat box, and
Okay.
then we'll go from there. And Chuck, I want to ask you to go ahead and get started, just knowing that our time is going to get away from us. So thank you.
Not a problem. First of all, I want to give a big thanks and a shout out to Jessica and Livewell. They've been a fantastic partner with our farm and our marketing plans over the last 2 and 3 years, and we've seen that relationship just grow and grow and grow. So we appreciate it. Just a real quick overview of our farm, little history. We're 5th generation. We've been farming some of the same ground since about 1906. There's my folks, myself, my brother, my kids, my grandkids, my brother's kids. So we got Hannigans spread all over the farm on a daily basis. We started years ago. Our family actually started in a pick your own and marketing to direct delivery to small grocers. We kind of progressed over the years. We got into roadside stands. We bought a stand from an uncle in Lamar. So we've got a roadside stand in Lamar that's been there for 50, 60 years. We've got a stand in Swink. It's the longest continually running fruit stand on Highway 50 in the Arkansas Valley. We also sell from our farm. We do wholesale, retail, pick your own, little bit of everything. In the 80s, we got into the farmers markets. So it's been kind of an evolutionary process, our marketing plan. It's nothing that we set down with the long-term goal. It just kind of evolves. We sell to other peddlers that's doing markets. At one time, we were doing 11 markets, farmers markets a week between Denver and Trinidad. About killed us. But basically, kind of and getting to the topic of this call, in the last few years, we've seen opportunities arise, and we've kind of changed. We've kind of gotten into other institutional markets, I guess. We've looked at farm to schools. We have several schools that buy from us. I've gone to farm to school meetings, and I claim to be the innovator of the farm to school program. They're about 25 years, 30, 40 years behind the ball. As a 3rd and 4th grader, I would carry two tomato boxes, a bushel of produce onto the school bus, ride to school, deliver it to the kitchen that day. So we minimized our transportation costs, and I'd always get a slice of fresh bread and real butter fresh out of the oven in the mornings upon delivery. So we've been doing it for years. And in the school side of things, we kind of see an advantage, I think, in rural Colorado, because we still have our school cooks are still school cooks. They use their can opener less and their bag opener less. They're still cutting and peeling and processing. The salad bar push in schools has been fantastic. Give that option. Given the option of good produce on a salad bar, kids will take it a lot. It's not like when they used to dump it on a plate and make us eat it before we could go to recess. So, given those opportunities, but it's given us an opportunity locally. And we just, like one school district that comes to Lamar, they actually shop at our farmers market and just run a tab. And at the end of the month, we send a ticket in. So you're 30 days, you're running a tab for 30 days, and you're 30 days out in process and a return or payment on that. So, those are some things that you got to take into consideration. It's not huge, but it's sure nice to have those kids eating that stuff. If they're eating it at school, their parents are going to be buying it in town too. So it's kind of a double hit there. We not only with the schools, we do institutions, we do food banks. We sell a lot of food banks. We sell to correctional facilities. Over the past probably 5 years, we've done a lot with the state of Colorado into the Department of Corrections. That and also the food bank industry or markets gives us a secondary outlet, I guess. You know, we all pray for rain, and then we pray when those clouds are coming over the top that it's going to rain and not hail. So a lot of times we'll have scarred produce. It's amazing. The consumer, even the shopper that goes to Whole Foods that wants good, healthy, properly raised, properly handled produce, they still want it pretty. So sometimes you've got scarring, you've got misshapen. The correctional facility has been a good industry or a good outlet for some of our larger overgrown. We get a stock of, we're picking summer squash and we're picking 600-700 boxes a day. Sometimes that can get ahead of you. You get a rain and things. That correctional market often will take that larger size at a discount. So it gives you an opportunity for number twos or different sizing and quality type deals outlets. That's kind of what we've also looked at into looking at food hub opportunities, where that type product can be processed, whether it's you know, our number two cantaloupes, they may be a little too ripe to go through the shelf life of the stores, but they're perfect to eat today. You know, we're constantly looking at the opportunities to maybe freezing, chunking and freezing that to go into the into industrial or to school districts and things like that through the winter. So we're kind of looking at those type things. One of the other things we've really looked at is, and we consider it kind of as another institutional, is our CSA sponsorships, because we're partnering with county governments, churches, nonprofits, corporate sponsors. We've got a couple of corporations that have sponsored, you know, the health and wellness of their employees is a direct correlation to the profitability of their business. And so they may cost share with their employees to buy a CSA share. And we're finding that's really cool. The county government did it this year. They sponsored some. The health department went through and got a grant, and they bought shares for some of their participants. So those are all good opportunities for us to market what we can. We have guaranteed marketing of those units at that, and we're looking at March and April for those. So it provides us a good chunk of our operating income. And then Jessica mentioned the double up. That's been huge for us because it provides two things. We were always brought up making sure that Dad said if somebody needed something, you took care of it. You know, if they were buying 25, 30 years ago with food stamps, they darn sure got every bit of what they needed. And if they had a car full of kids and they were short of food stamps, you took care of them. That's just the right way to do things. Well, this double up deal is just an extension of that. It hits people that need, and it gives us the opportunity to give them fresh fruits and vegetables. A lot of them are even picking it themselves through our pick your own deal. So they're getting sweat equity involved in the meal that they're putting on their table, the food that they're putting into their canning jars and their freezers all winter long. So, you know, that has become a huge stabilizing factor in a lot of the lower income population of our area. And it's been twofold. It's very helpful in the financing of our operation, but it's also fantastic that we're building a strengthening that clientele base. Couple of the things that we've done to kind of help in all of these facets is we've added partners. We have a partnership with an orchard in Palisade and a farm in Pueblo also, Di Tomaso Farms, and they share our philosophy of production. They're not on a chemical spraying calendar. They do what needs to be done. They handle it right. They eat what they grow. They'll feed it to their grandkids. That's always the big test. Is, you know, if you'll feed what you grow to your grandkids, then you know it's a good product. And so we use those relationships to help fill holes, especially in Department of Corrections. There's opportunities. They'll call up and they'll because it could be an outbreak, a lockdown or something. They go to immediate lockdown. So they need quick processed, easily bagged things. And through our partnership, sometimes we get a call for 20 bins of apples, you know, or can you guys get us in 24 hours that we can make work in this? So through partnerships with with another farm and another orchard, they fill the gaps that we're not able to have. And so that goes across to helping fill our food banks, our CSAs, our school orders, all of those. We also deal with quite a few restaurants. I do a farmer's market every Saturday in Pueblo, or in Colorado Springs at the old farmer's market there. And I have standing orders from restaurants. So many boxes of this, cantaloupes, things, whatever, tomatoes, cucumbers. But one of the challenges we face there is, you know, they're planning ahead for a week and I get 3 days that it rains. I know that hasn't happened this year, but it does happen, and we're delayed in what we're able to get. Sometimes that can be a challenge that we have to, it's rough if I can't get it. So having that partnership also helps me guarantee that I can step out to one of them and possibly fill a void that I can't get because of a weather condition or something. So that's pretty much what we have and what we're doing. I think the big thing is, you know, I think the situation that with the economy, I think we're going to see a lot more the double ups, a lot of the food banks. We make donations. You take care of your neighbors. So our food pantries and associated charities locally here, we're going to see a lot more calling and need for those people. So, you know, some of it will be sales, some of it we just got to take care of. So, but that's kind of our plan and how we've evolved. Like I said, it wasn't something we put down on a whiteboard 20 years ago. It's something that happens when as the phone rings. So, but thank you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chuck. I'm going to ask that everybody would use the chat for questions for Chuck as well. Just looking at the time, I want to make sure and go ahead and move to Letty McKinney. And Letty, don't feel like it's a problem to take your 10 minutes. Just give us what you got, and then if anybody has something that they got to get to right at 9, then feel free to drop off and access the video as we send it out later. But with that, I'm going to just go ahead and turn it to Letty to introduce herself and what she's doing, and kind of how she thinks about this topic. So with that, go for it, Letty.
Awesome. Thank you. I just want to thank you guys for letting me be on this. I feel really honored and I'm really excited. So our business is MC Bar Meat Co. and it's my sister and I. We're co-owners. I'm 25 and my sister's 21. But you can change it to the next slide, please. And then this is my family, my mom and my dad, and then I'm on the left and my sister's on the right. My dad is a 3rd-generation farmer and rancher, and then Annie and I are 4th-generation farmers and ranchers. This place was homesteaded, and it was purchased in 1931, but was actually in operation before that. The biggest thing that we do a little bit of everything. We run cattle. We are row crop farmers. We do a lot of hay. And pretty much alfalfa, corn, wheat, milo, anything that we can do to make sure we're sustainable for future generations to come is what we do. I went to Oklahoma State University, and this is kind of where MC Bar Meat Co. was first born with the dream, I guess. I knew if I ever wanted to come back home, I had to bring another operation back. I had to bring another business and a way to add value to our products. I'm much more into the cattle side of things than I am the farming. That's kind of my passion, are the cattle. And whenever I first went to college, I saw the big, huge gap between consumers or customers and producers. And this was kind of, MC Bar Meat Co. was the way I can share our story. I can tell people we're not out to harm you. We don't pump animals full of antibiotics. We're just trying to do the best we can with what we have, with our resources. And we really wanted to bridge that gap between the customers and the producers. There's just a huge gap where people don't understand what we do. They don't understand, they just don't understand what we're trying to do, and that we are trying to make the environment better. I mean, all of our management practices with rotational grazing and cover crops and everything that we do is regenerative agriculture. So we're trying to make our lands better for future generations to come. You can go to the next slide, please. And that's kind of what, sorry, I should have changed the slide sooner, but that's what MC Bar Meat Co. is all about. We're really big on sustainability, and I knew, like I said before, I knew coming back, I had to bring an operation back to come home. I was in the feed yard for a couple years, so I took a lot of what I learned from the feed yard back to our operation, to finishing beef, and just making it better all along. And you can go on to the next slide. The biggest triumphs we've had are returning customers. That is where we do our main focus on, is I want people to come back. I want them to feel like they can trust us and that they know we're safe. One of the biggest things we recently did this year is we're actually selling beef to our local grocery stores. We sell to Stanton County Foods, which is here in Johnson, Kansas, where I'm located, and then also the store in Syracuse, Kansas, which is 30 miles north of us. And they actually approached me when I first started MC Bar Meat Co. I asked them if they'd be interested in it. At the time being, they weren't interested in it. They could buy it cheaper from their providers, their retailers, versus what I could provide it to them. But due to COVID and the shortage of meat that they saw, they were having issues getting beef into the grocery store. And as you can tell, there's not a shortage of beef in the United States. It's a matter of getting it to the grocery stores and finding that avenue. And a lot of times, I did an interview with Kansas Living Magazine, and she was like, well, did you have to do anything different to supply beef to the grocery store? And I said, no, we were actually already doing the things we were needing to do. You know, we were inspected properly. We go to USDA inspector or Kansas inspected processing facility. It was just a different customer, and we actually offer the grocery store, we offer them a wholesale price versus if I do customer one-on-one, it's more of the retail price that you would see in the grocery stores versus a wholesale price. The biggest triumph we've also had is I have figured out the power of social media. And I know a lot of farmers and ranchers aren't pursuing this avenue, but me being a younger generation, I understand the power of social media. I understand I can access so many more people through Instagram, through Facebook, through Pinterest, through YouTube channels. If I was just doing this in my own little area, which I've had problems getting into local areas because people here, they understand the importance of agriculture, that most people buy half a beef or quarter of beef already. It's not really a market I want to get into, but it's not something I was having success getting into. So I started sharing our story on social media avenues, and it just took off like a house of fire. Because people want to know us. They want to know where their food comes from. They want to trust their food. And that was one of the biggest things I had found that really changed the future of MC Bar Meat Co. and just projected it into, and then everything with COVID, now customers are very much more in tune to buying directly from farmers and ranchers versus buying it in the grocery store, which I hope this is continued down in the future, and just it's a reoccurring thing, which has been a trend for the last couple of years. You know, people are becoming more aware about their food. They have questions and they want to know, and they want to know your story and your family and what you're doing for the land. And I think it's great. I think we need to, as producers, I think we need to share our story and tell them how things are going, and be very transparent. We're not hiding anything from them. We want them to know we have to spray herbicides on our corn crop so we have a better corn crop. You know, just things like that they need to know about. You can go on to the next slide. The biggest trials I've had is shipping. It took me a while to figure out shipping for MC Bar Meat Co. Marketing is very hard, but it's great once you figure it out. Shipping was the biggest thing, because now with the power of social media, I could reach people on the East and West Coast. I'd ship to California, to Georgia, to New York. It's been a huge blessing, but I had to figure out what was the best way to ship beef, especially on these whenever it gets hot like it is now. It will dry out, it will become thaw, and that's the last thing I want, is for a package to arrive on somebody's door, and whether it be my fault or the carrier's fault, because sometimes UPS will just leave it out in the open. They won't even put it on the side or under the shade before they get home. So shipping was the biggest thing. I did a lot of trial and error runs. Luckily, my brother lives in California, so I shipped a lot of beef to him to try different boxes, different packaging, just different things to try and make it work. I used dry ice. I finally got it narrowed down. I have these shipping liners I've ordered from ITC, and then I use mailer boxes for our product. I use dry ice for everything. And like, if I'm going to the West Coast or the East Coast, I usually do 2-day air just to make sure, because that's the last thing I don't want to freak out any customers whenever the beef arrives and it's partly thawed. It's better to be completely frozen when they get there. Also, another big, as long as social media has been a big triumph, it's also been a big trial to figure out in sharing your story properly. There's a lot of technique and skill that goes into it, and just being vulnerable with your story. I think that was one of the biggest things I had issues with at first, was just being vulnerable enough to step out and just say, we're not the same as everybody else, which is great. I think there's power in your story. Everybody's story is different, and we're not your big conventional farmers and ranchers. We don't farm 10,000 acres or whatever it may be, like a lot of people in our area, but we're smaller scale, and I think there's a lot of power in our story. Another big thing is email marketing and sending out newsletters to people. And then also finding my ideal customer, because I don't want to sell beef to everybody, but I want to sell beef to those people who want to learn where their food comes from. And there's no way I can supply beef to everybody either. And I think I've actually teamed up with some of our local, there's a bunch of other ranchers in our area who are trying to do the same thing, where they're marketing their beef directly to customers. And I think it's great to have a bank of people who are doing this, because our beef isn't grass-fed beef, it's finished with corn. But our neighbors down the road, they're grass-fed beef, so I can't tailor to everybody, but I can point our customers in the right direction with a very reliable product that's more apt to what they're liking. And I think there's power in that, in forming those partnerships with our local producers. I think it's huge, and once our customers trust us in that area, it will just branch out and it'll be a ripple effect, which I think is very huge. And I already hit on the local customers, how it's been hard to get into the local customers, but just because there's a lot of beef producers around here, And a lot of people will buy, they'll have a full beef in stock. So that wasn't my ideal customer coming into this. My customers were more about the people who are living in the cities who don't know where their food is, but maybe want to buy from a local rancher, don't know where to start. That's kind of my ideal customer, is somebody who can afford a premium product without, paying $13 a pound for grass-fed beef. Our beef is still very affordable. It's not outrageous, but there is a premium to it because it is a premium meat, which I am very proud of. But I still want to make it affordable to the customers who may not be able to afford paying $13 a pound for grass-fed beef. So that is kind of where we're at. And I believe that's it. Do you guys have any questions?
Hey, Letty, we've got one in the chat that says, how many cattle do you raise on average?
We have both a cow-calf herd, and then I have the marketing program. We run about 100 mama cows, and then all the heifers usually go into the marketing well, not all the heifers, it's about 30 head that will go into the marketing program. So, and it just depends on which ones we sort from replacements. We still sell all our steers on the conventional market, usually to a feed yard or something like that, but the heifers, usually we get discounted for, and they still going through the market route, we can get a premium for that product. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Great. And Liza asked how much a pound of ground beef goes for in the local market.
It's $6 a pound for ground beef, and that's 85-15% lean. So I usually get it finished all the same.
Excellent. That's great. It was great to come across your story, and great to, that you could join us today and share a little bit about what you're doing, and certainly really look forward to continuing, to hear about what you're doing and to work with you into the future. I wanted to take just the last few minutes, and certainly you can keep asking some questions of Letty if you've got some in the chat, and I'm sure she can handle that there. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and look forward, and then we'll wrap up for today. So I believe, and Daryl has dropped off, so I can't even ask him for sure, but I believe it is 2 weeks from today, on July 1st, that we will have our last of our originally planned 4 calls. So those of you who've kind of been with us the whole time know that we planned on a in-person summit back in April. That kind of got kicked out the door with all the changes, and we moved to this 4 different Zoom call setting. And so we're going to wrap that up in 2 weeks, but our intent at this point is to keep the conversations going after that, once a month, maybe more if that's what seems appropriate. Certainly we had a ton of information today, and I think there's more conversations to be had about accessing the institutional markets and how we work together as producers to do that. So certainly I could see even having a deeper dive on this subject coming up. I think that one of the topics that we've talked about that we really want to dive into is specifically around beef, and how to, there's so much beef that's grown in this area and raised in this area, but it's not largely even available to be consumed in the area, or at least the consumers aren't accessing that. And so certainly want to spend some time talking about that, and then would love to even have your opinion, Letty, and some of the other producers that we've got around. Even my family has some beef that very small, that we mainly just consume ourselves, but you have to be scheduled in to have that processed months and months and months in advance. And so just knowing that even from the processing side, there might be some challenges for producers to deal with, and those are the types of things that we want to make sure and host some conversations around, and see if we can work on solving some of those challenges together. So the next time we get together, we want to lay out a little bit more about the funding that we as Ogallala Commons had to do some of this convening comes around a planning grant that, and really a long-term project that we have in mind for helping to rebuild the food shed along the Arkansas Valley. We started with a fairly small area just to get into what we're doing, but obviously that geography is huge. And so we want to talk a little bit about the different data that we've collected from producers that have been joining us on these, other producers that we've engaged with, as well as some data that we've collected through some events with students in local schools before the schools had to go virtual for the spring. And then talk about what the goal moving forward and what the process moving forward is as we hope to move into more implementation around rebuilding the food shed with local producers and with the consumers and communities of Southeast Colorado. So that's really going to be the topic next time, is just to kind of lay out where we've been, how we got to there, lay out for all of you and anyone else what we're thinking moving forward, and kind of how we continue to collaborate together and build a coalition that can really make a difference in Southeast Colorado and beyond. And Letty, part of the impetus for inviting you is that we really look at this as a food shed is not something that knows barriers of county or state or any of that. Much like the watershed, many of us live very close to you, and so we want to tie all of that work together. So anyway, with that, I know we're 10 minutes over. Everybody's busy these days, so I want to go ahead and shut it down for today. But we look forward to seeing you in the future in a couple of weeks. And do watch your email. We'll get everything out as normal after the call. And I know that there'll be some emails going out to kind of preview for what's coming. And you can double check in there and make sure that I'm right, that it's 2 weeks from today, and back at 8 o'clock again. So. With that, if anybody's got any other questions, I can be here for a minute, but thank you guys so much, and we'll look forward to onward and upward.
Really thank the speakers. It is inspiring to see there's work around, so appreciate you guys.
I echo that.
This was great. Happy to be here, and I'm already on Letty's website trying to figure out how I can get a group of friends together to get some beef.
Yeah,
I'm in. Don't forget.
Buck Hannigan too, both of you, really inspiring. And Jessica, as always, you're such a champion and really making a difference in our state. So thank you so much.
One step at a time. Thank you as well. Well, I have a call I must run to, so.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
You guys have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you. Bye.